Hey everyone, Irene Lyon here. Welcome to this entire world of nervous system health, healing, trauma, and all things neuroplasticity. I have a clip for you today. It's a little longer, talking about anger and the importance of us getting our anger out in a healthy way. Not rage, not hurting others, not hurting ourselves. Back in 2020, I did a long form lecture called Anger is Medicine. We will link it near here, the full lecture. This is a portion of that lecture. I read an excerpt from one of Gabor Maté's books, When the Body Says No, and I break down why it is so important for us to not only learn about why anger is medicine, but how when it is stuck inside of us, repressed, suppressed, stifled, it makes us sick. And right now, even back then, I talked about the prevalence of cancer and autoimmune disease and chronic illness and chronic pain, and we're still dealing with that 4 years later. And one of the ways to work with these body troubles and also mental health troubles, there's a very strong connection between depression and stored anger. So when we work with anger, when we work with our bodies to get this anger out in a healthy way, of course, we start to heal and it becomes medicinal. So have a watch of this clip from 4 years ago, and I do encourage you to watch the entirety of this when you can. Enjoy. Next thing, how does anger get stored, right? And how can it turn into disease? So I'm going to read a portion from When the Body Says No, Gabor Maté. This is like a Bible in terms of how stress, held emotions, not being who we are, not expressing our life force energy, how that can, if we're not working on it actively to get that stuff out, how it makes us sick. And by sick, I mean chronic illness, cancer, heart disease, autoimmune, all the autoimmune pieces, rheumatoid, MS, ALS. We know, and he doesn't get so much into it in this book, but other books such as Bessel Kolk's book, When the Body Keeps the Score, another book of his on addiction, etc. When we are not able to access all of the human emotions, what our biology has gifted us in our DNA, when we suppress and stunt them and only reserve certain things for certain times, that makes us sick. And so this is from a chapter at the end of the book, and I've quoted this many times on many quotes and Instagram posts and in my articles, but it's so good I got to read it. So this is the chapter called The 7 A's of Healing, and this is the third A is anger. And so he says, he's quoting a movie where Woody Allen says, "I never get angry," or maybe it's just what Woody Allen said, "I never get angry," a Woody Allen character says in one of his movies. So it was a movie. "I never get angry, I grow a tumor instead." And then he says, throughout this book, we have seen the truth of that droll remark in numerous studies of cancer patients. Cancer is a huge thing right now. The last I heard, at least here in Canada, the numbers are going up staggeringly. Children are getting cancers left, right, and center, and it's just not right, in my opinion. And of course, there's environmental pieces, there's our diet, there's our food supply, our relationships, but a lot of it, when you get into this research, is about emotional repression. So he says, we have also seen that the repression of anger is a major risk factor for disease because it increases physiological stress on the organism. So the repression of anger, keeping it inside, that puts stress on the organism, right? There's this thought that anger, expressing anger, puts stress. But there's a distinction in here that I'm going to unpack today. So not only does the repression of anger predispose to disease, but the experience of anger has been shown to promote healing. I'm going to say that one more time. But the experience, not the expression so much, but the experience of anger has been shown to promote healing, or at least to prolong survival. People with cancer who have been able to muster anger at their physicians, for example, have lived longer than their placid counterparts. I'm going to read that one more time because it's so powerful. People with cancer, and we could insert chronic illness also to that, who have been able to muster anger at their physicians, for example, have lived longer than their more placid counterparts. In animal experiments, the expression of anger has been found to be less physiological stressful than the suppression of it. In rats who fight others when caged together, so rats who fight others when caged together, they slow the growth of tumors, and then the more docile rats. So the rats that are being like that bear who's fighting fighting to protect the cubs, those rats are not getting as sick, right? They're staving away the cancer growth. All that research is in this book. If you want to dig it up, get the book. It's a great book. So what this is saying is that this concept that we've kind of been raised with, to not be angry, to button it up, the stiff British upper lip, which has transferred to so many places throughout the entire world, even though it originated with that high level of aristocracy, it's making us sick. And we need to stop this. We need to learn the importance of these emotions and not explode and go around killing everyone, which sadly is kind of what we've seen happen in our human society, and harming others and destroying our world and all these things. I know it's really morbid, isn't it? We've kind of gone to the other end of this. We've got this stored anger inside, and rather than working with it in a way that is healing, we express it and act it out in a way that is harmful, right? So instead of working with it in a way that is healing, we express it in a way that is harmful, not only to us, but to others. The reason why I think it's so tricky to work with is because we've been brainwashed from so little. So again, that example of that baby who is not cognitively online yet. You have to understand, when that little infant starts to feel that healthy aggression, the burgeoning of that emotion, anger, they're not questioning it. It's just full, fifth gear, let it out, and then it gets stopped, right? And so it starts to come out. We need to be able to honor it. Now, of course, the question might be, well, Irene, how do I work with that when I know that that's probably what happened? Or maybe I don't even know that happened, but I'm pretty sure it happened. And it comes down to, first of all, learning this education, which you're doing right now, and then starting to really learn how to listen to all emotions, not just anger. So if we suppress tears, if we suppress joy, if we don't allow ourselves to feel grossed out or disgusted at things, disgust is another primal emotion, mammalian emotion. When we stop any of the emotions, when we stop ourselves from being who we truly are, it's hard to get that anger out. And often you'll see these workshops and these very cathartic, weekend intensives where it's like, come get your anger out, and you're given a bat and you're given a pillow and you have to hit, or you go into some kind of boxing situation and you're just getting all that frustration out. The trouble with that is that if we just go into the hitting, if we go into the screaming, but we don't do it organically and with context, the system isn't going to know how to process it. So the goal is to eventually get to this point where we're so tuned to our biology and our body, and we build its capacity to feel safe, to feel connected, to feel supported. Then when we get those pieces on board, these anger, healthy aggression emotions, and all the other emotions, they start to visit and bubble up naturally on their own. And then when they do come up, because we've done the prep work and the groundwork, there isn't this confusion or fear. Most people that I work with, they stay away from working with anger and expressing it because they're afraid that they're going to kill someone or hurt themselves or cause more damage. And that's possible. It's possible that if we don't do this in a titrated, it's a very somatic experiencing term, in a step-by-step slow way, that is what might occur. And so I'll get to that in a little bit. The other reason why I think it's so tricky and confusing is that we just haven't seen it used for the most part successfully in society. And we see it in ways that are harmful, or we see it in ways that actually harm some people. Meaning, a person might get walked all over, not usually literally, but emotionally, because they don't know how to set boundaries. They don't know how to say no. And if we think about abuse and people being attacked and harmed, there's an interesting play in there. And so I'm going to speak to that real quickly right now. If someone is being harmed, say physically attacked, and they know that they are not going to be able to fight because the person is too skilled, is too big. This is very common with children who are being either physically or sexually attacked and abused by people bigger than them. Their physiology knows, I can't fight this and I can't get out, so I'm going to shut down. Right? This is kind of like nervous system basics 101. We have fight, we have flight, we have freeze. If we can't flee, first of all, if we can't connect and engage and de-escalate the situation, which usually with little ones is pretty hard because the big person is trying to overpower the little person. If we can't fight, if we can't flee, we will shut down. However, in that shutdown, what is under that shutdown is all the fight and flight survival stress. It gets stored in the physiology, and that gets stored in our tissues, and we keep it there forever unless we actively work with it. This is a very important part, because a lot of times there's this misunderstanding, is like, oh, I feel fine. Yeah, I feel great. Yeah, everything's great. I'm kind of acting right now. Oh yeah, I'm really calm. Yeah. Just this but it's a frozen calm. We call this functional freeze. I did another video about that. Very important video to follow up with this one, so be sure to watch that afterwards if you haven't already, or review it if you already have. So under that, I'm great, I'm calm, I'm really okay. You can tell, you can almost see the tension in a person's face, in the bracing of their body. You can even see this in body types in terms of armoring, barreled chest, right? We see this in a lot of men and women, these chests and shoulders that are like literal armor, right? They might as well just be wearing a suit of armor because their muscles and their structure is so armored. There's no flow. And usually it's there for good reason, because they've had to protect all the crappy stuff that they have seen and witnessed and not known how to stomach and not known how to fight and flee, and so it's trapped inside. This goes back to what Maté talked about in this book in regards to how basically when we have this, it's not just chronic stress, it's survival stress, right? Right now, as I'm talking to you, there's a little bit of stress in my system. I'm looking at my notes. I'm making sure this is still going. I see there's 104 people. That's a lot of people. So this is stressful for me, but it's not dysregulating. Hope that makes sense. There's a little bit of stress. If I was so calm, you wouldn't hang around, because I'd be absolutely boring to listen to. It just would be monotone. So the person, the people, the way society is, when we've had all these hurts and harms, and it doesn't have to be just big physical abuse and sexual abuse and that kind of thing. It can be micro traumas of, hearing mom and dad fight every night at the dinner table. Maybe they're not directing it to us, but they hate each other. And they're not splitting up, because that's not what you do. But that energy, that little one, inside their blood is boiling, wanting to leave, wanting to scream at them, say, stop it, get divorced, what are you doing, you're hurting me. But they won't do it, because a child has to save face. They have to stay protected, and they have to stay in that environment. And here's the thing. So we might go through life and not realize all the times we held in what we wanted to say. We wanted to cry, we wanted to scream, we wanted to say stop, stomp our feet, and yet we didn't. And so that's a little snippet into how fight and flight can get wrapped under that freeze response. And usually within those fight flights, because think, fight, anger, there's the emotion anger. And so part of the tricky nature with this is everybody wants a quick fix. Hopefully, if you're here watching, you're starting to understand, while this work isn't a quick fix, it actually does work. And so when we work at these biological, physiological levels, learning how to be with our physiology, we start to build a different base. We start to connect to these emotions, not so much even from an emotional point of view, through what's going on in the limbic system, but how we feel it in our body, right? That gut sense, those butterflies in our stomach, the tightness in our throat that tells us we're holding back our words, the blood boiling in our hands that just wants to say stop. All these things are important medicine. So again, this idea of anger is medicine. When we can learn to work with these things and understand what they are and why they're stuck, it starts to become medicinal.